Hello, welcome back to another episode of Take It and Run with your hosts, Kristi and Kelcie. So today we wanted to do something a little bit different. We get asked a lot of questions by coaching clients, by real estate agents, and just in general, people slide into our DMs and ask us questions. And so Kelcie and I thought we would take some of the most common questions we get asked. Obviously, I'll be coming from the perspective of a coach and a real estate agent. And Kelcie is also a licensed real estate agent. Her specialty, though, has been behind the scenes for a decade.
Huh?
A decade.
A decade. And I
She's
look
not
the
even.
same.
She's not even 30. No, but think about that.
Yeah.
You have a decade's worth of insight from so just to give you
Sideline knowledge.
Yeah, just to give you, the audience who doesn't know you a little perspective. Kelcie has worked with Meryl and I and the Big Helper team for, like as I said, a decade, but specifically helping us find, onboard, interview agents, train them, set up the technology, set up the automation, set up the systems, marketing, transaction coordination. I mean, there's not very much that she hasn't done on the team, and also just having a ton of conversations one-on-one. Heck, I came in here just a minute ago and she was on the phone with an agent answering a technical question. So
Shout out, Chris.
These we're going to handle some of these. We're not going to obviously get to all of them, but we thought we would just pick some of the most common questions that we get asked. So, you've got your license, you've got your coffee, you have a whole bunch of ambition, and now you're thinking, what's next? So we're gonna do that. Kelcie, why don't you hit our very first question?
Okay. It's a question that so many people ask as soon as they get out of real estate school, because it's not something they teach you in real estate school. It's, how do I find my first clients? And when we were bringing on agents, new or seasoned, but maybe the seasoned agents were off their game a little bit, the first thing that we looked to was, who do you know? You start with your sphere of influence. And we'll link it in the show notes, but we always take people through a memory jogger. And so, because a lot of people are like, I don't know anybody. No, you do. You do know people, and they're locked in here, and we just got to pull them out. So that's how we started with that question of, how do I find my first clients?
Yeah. So we always start with, as Kelcie said, who do you know? And I'm gonna take the coach perspective on this one. So one of the most important things that you can do when getting started is to identify at least 2 lead pillars and grow to 4 lead pillars. So the first place we will start people, and even in a coaching system, when people come into my schedule, one of the first things we do is we audit their database of past clients in Sphere and make sure that it's operating at full capacity. Then we look at things like open houses. So one of the best ways that you can get new business, and actually this is how Meryl and I built our business over a decade ago. I think Meryl's been doing real estate for 16 years now. But one of the first things that we did was open houses. And I love open houses because it is all sweat equity and not check equity. So even if you're new and you don't have those closings yet, you can start doing open houses, borrow signs from a friend, borrow them from your broker, just kind of figure it out and get started. So when people say, where do I find my first clients? Yes, your sphere of influence is going to be one of the very first places, and there's a roadmap for that. Then you're going to jump into open houses. You're going to also look at possibly online leads. And I'm not saying go out and buy online leads, but you're going to optimize your online profile to make sure that you can be found online as a real estate agent. And I think that is probably the second question. It's not like just my first clients, but it always follows up with the best way to generate leads on a budget. I think they go hand in hand. How do I find my first client, but also how do I get more leads without a budget? And that's where, you can really start to do a lot online. Yes, you can go out and buy, leads from a Zillow or a realtor or something like that, but you can also use a lot of free stuff. Kelsey's been instrumental in helping us grow our Google business profile.
Mhm.
What have you seen for agents? Like, what's important for them when they're growing their Google business profile?
Um, so I've been so into Google that I get viscerally upset whenever I Google like a restaurant, or I Googled an apartment complex the other day and they didn't even have a website on Google. And I'm like, I'm not giving you the time of day.
Are you even a real business?
Yeah. And I'm like, you had 2 Google reviews that seemed great, but I guess none of it matters. And so it's like, if in my opinion, don't even go start buying any leads until your Google business is set up properly. And Kristi's done several trainings on how to set up your Google business. But so do that first, and you can do so much to build your Google business. All of it's free in Google, and your business profile. And then pushing people towards that uh, will make you seem more credible, with everything that you got on there.
I want to make sure, because this is hot off the press. Jason Pantana, shout out to Coach Jason Pantana and co-founder of AI Marketing Academy. He did an Instagram reel this week, so you can go and find it on his Instagram page. He talked about how the AIs, like the Grok and Perplexity and ChatGPT, a lot of times they can't read your reviews. So if you were to say, "Hey, how many reviews does Kristi Jencks have or has Meryl Jencks have?" The AI can't read it. So he gave a really cool hack. He said that in your profiles, so like your Google business profile, in your Zillow profile, in your Fast Expert profile, you should say, Kristi Jencks with over 175 5-star reviews,
Mhm.
because it can pick up on your profile and then
Ah.
it will be able to give you more credibility. So I may have botched that a little bit, but when you said that, I was like, oh, it's such an important key that he gave, so that you can have more credibility. Obviously, don't lie. You
Right.
need to have those reviews, but pull in your Facebook reviews, pull in your Yelp reviews, your Zillow, your Google business, add them all up together, and then probably make it part of your process that once a month you go into your profile and update how many reviews you have, just so that the large language models can stay current with what you're doing. So, okay. The next question that we tend to get all the time is, how do I price a home correctly? How do I run comps? And, how do I understand what the market's doing? And I just want to take a step back, because what is really happening there is people are asking, what's important to study? Like, what do I really need to know? And this is something that Meryl and I have been passionate for years about, and that is studying the marketplace. Being able to not just say, I think home values are going up or home values are going down, but here's what I know, and be able to lean into the facts. So there are 4 numbers that I believe that you should track. And with those 4 numbers, you'll be able to talk about the market. And we can talk about some of the tools that we use currently. And we're obviously using AI in with that. But the first one is I look at the total number of active inventory. Now, our MLS is fairly large, but if you don't service your whole MLS, create a search. If you just service one city or one zip code or 2 cities, you're going to want to create a saved search that will show you all the active inventory. The next thing I look at is the total number of pending homes. Now, we have several different categories of pending homes. So what we do is we just add them all up together. And then we look at the total number of homes closed in the past 30 days. And with that number, we're able to figure out what the month's supply of inventory is, which means if no more homes were to come on the market, we would go through all of our inventory in X amount of time. So currently in the Phoenix metro area, we have just over 4 months supply of inventory. And that's basically an absorption rate. And then with those basic numbers, you can start to talk and start to track. Now, one of the best things, like I said, Merrill's been tracking this for over 15 years. Probably a decade ago, we started just putting it in Slack. We had a Slack channel, which we would post these numbers on Slack. And our coach at the time, her name's Eileen Rivera, she said, can you historically go back and look at this? And we were on the free version of Slack. And so every 30 days, Slack would delete. And so we couldn't. She said, it'd be really helpful. You could use this in a listing appointment. You could use this, with a buyer. And we thought, wow, that's actually really, really smart. And we talked about this on our podcast episode with Meryl. We go in every single week, we drop it into our spreadsheet, and now we're able to visually track what's going on with the market. But Kelcie, I would love for you to be able to speak with specifically how people can use AI to help understand what's going on in the marketplace.
Well, I think it helps them to formulate okay, so let me back up. But when you were going through this, it just made me think of I don't even sell real estate. People just know I'm in real estate. And so what's the question I get all the time?
How's the market?
And I'm like, for a second, I have a little bit of, but then honestly, because I've had a decade worth of hearing literally what Kristi was just saying over and over again, seeing it in Slack, I look to that and I look, okay, well, let's look at the month's supply of inventory. And well, 2 months ago it was like this, and this month it's like this. So that tells us blank. And that's just regurgitated stuff that I've been able to hold on to. But I would say now with AI, you can give the machine that information and ask it, how do I explain what's going on? How do I answer the question, how's the market with this current data to somebody who's looking to sell their current home and downsize?
Yeah. So basically, almost all MLSs will allow you to do some sort of an export. So you can export all that data, upload it to your favorite AI, Grok, ChatGPT, Perplexity. Actually, I've never tried it in Perplexity, but I imagine that I don't know. But for certain, ChatGPT, and it can help you write a market update. And that's probably one of the best things that you can do. Why should you understand the market? So that you can do a market update. I posted on my Instagram story today. I got my monthly email from Zillow. And what was in the email, it was like, here's how 852988 is performing. And this totally irks me because so many agents don't do a market update. They don't study the market. They don't know what's going on, but then they do study the market because they're running comps, they do these things, and then they don't share that information with their clients. Well, 85298, the average price is down according to Zillow's thing year over year. And yeah, that's actually accurate. And am I going to let them educate all my clients on what's going on in the market? Or should I actually take all this information, all these numbers that I'm looking at every single week and tracking, upload them to AI, create an incredible market update, and then, get it out to my clients? I should be the one that is creating the story for my clients and not letting a third party company do it, right? Like that's just one of those things.
Should studying the market be part of somebody's typical day?
100%. You should be spending, in my opinion, a portion of every day looking at the hot sheet, looking, and on the hot sheet, you're going to see price reductions, you're going to see new listings, you're going to see coming soon, you're going to see some of those stuff. But every single week, you should be taking 15, 20 minutes to just do a little bit of a deeper dive to make sure that you see the trends, right? So every day, yes, you're going to be looking at certain things. Every week, you're going to want to dive into those numbers and then ask yourself, supply and demand, right? Like, are we selling more homes than we have coming on the market? Or do we have more homes coming on the market than we're selling? What are the trends that we're seeing?
Yeah.
So that actually that's a good segue to our next question.
It is. Yeah. So what, I'm sure this is probably like next to where do I find clients? This next question of what does my day look like? What should my day look like? Because, as real estate agents, you're your boss unless you've got like a team lead,
But even then, you're still 1099, so
Yeah.
you're still your own boss.
Yeah. So you need some structure, right? So what should the structure look like, Kristi?
Well, it's funny because Kelcie is our go-to like resident Canva specialist. And so she's probably had to create like no less than 50 versions of this. And at least once a week, I ask her to email these things to you guys who reach out to me. And unfortunately, I think this is probably going to cause one of those moments.
It's okay. That's all right.
You might need to set up a many chat.
Yes.
Okay. You might need to set up a many chat and we'll figure it out. We'll put it in the show notes. Maybe it'll be like calendar.
Right.
And then you can send them our Canva template. So this is such a common question. And really what it is like people, you can stay busy all day long, but busy work doesn't always mean that you're building your business.
Yep.
Right. So scrolling Instagram or getting distracted, or, we don't typically have water coolers now, but you get what I'm saying. Like if you go into the office, maybe you're just chatting it up, you're doing all these things. So you can feel like, oh, I put in a full work day. And then if you were to sit down and like calculate how many conversations you had, it's probably not enough.
Mhm.
And so there are some things that you can do to make sure. One, you want to have some goals set. Coach Janet Miller, who I absolutely love, she says that you need to have 10 real estate conversations a day, go on 1 listing appointment a week, and 2 buyer consultations a week. She's like, if you can do that, you're going to have a healthy business. I've heard Tom call it the 554, right? So he said 554, 55421. He's had a bunch of versions of it. But what he's saying is like, talk to 5 people you know, talk to 5 people you don't know, do 4 follow-up calls, do 1 or 2 videos, right? Create 2 pieces of content. The point is your morning should be spent doing some form of lead generation. If you could door knock, right? Lead generation looks like a lot of different things, but you need to have dedicated time. We often called it an hour of power.
Mm-hmm.
And during our hour of power, that's just where we were making calls, right? Outbound calls, lead follow-up calls, but we were on the phone and doing some form of lead generation. That could be calling expireds, canceled for sell by owners. That can be talking to your sphere, reaching out. It could be open houses. There's just only so many ways that you can lead generate. But the point is you are cultivating conversations. You should spend your midday going on appointments, right? Servicing your clients. And if you don't have appointments, you go back to lead gen, right? So when you're looking at your pipeline, it's like, I need to set appointments, then I need to go on appointments. And if I don't have any appointments, I need to go back and set appointments. And then some point in your week, you want to have some project time and things like that. But oftentimes what I see is people spend too much time on their projects and not enough time on their lead generation, and their pipeline is always full. A couple other things I recommend, because real estate never stops, is, set up a time of when you're going to start working. Because again, you're your own boss. So like, when do you get up? When do you start working? And then when do you end working?
Yeah.
When do you going to shut off? Right. Working with so many agents over the years, Kelcie, what's like probably one of the biggest traps that you've seen of time management? Like, where do agents mess up the most or go sideways?
Do you want my potentially controversial answer?
Absolutely.
Renting.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I don't want to speak for you, so I want you to explain that. So she said parenting, and I think I know where you're going, but let's hear it.
Yeah. Like as you were talking through this, I don't know why, but the first thing that came to my mind was like, okay, think about how many mothers, and I'm just gonna say it's mostly mothers that are staying home with the children, are real estate agents. A lot of them, which I think is great because there's freedom, there's opportunity, there's so much for moms that are staying at home raising the kids have, but the amount of distraction and uh potential being yanked this way, and I have to do this for my kid and this. Yes, your family comes first, absolutely. But Kristi, would you agree that there's a way that structuring your business actually does support the belief that family comes first?
Yeah.
So that's why parenting came to my head first. Of that's been one of the biggest struggles I've seen people face. So I guess in particular women face in trying to maintain a structured business and day.
And growing their business.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man, that was so good. And I didn't even come to my mind, but as soon as you said it, like the light bulb went off. Oh my gosh, this is something as a coach that I'm constantly, well, I couldn't do this because of XYZ, XYZ, XYZ. And I get it. Heck, we have a big family, and there are things that you could do, and we should probably do like a whole episode on that. But I would say don't use your family as an excuse to not do the work that you need to do.
Yeah.
Right. So that could mean, like, when my kids were little, I woke up earlier. And then when they went to bed, when they were little, they'd go to bed around 7, and I would work from 7 to 9.
Mhm.
So that's when I would work on my projects. That's when I'd work on my social media marketing, emails, all that kind of stuff. That may mean that, but don't use your family as an excuse. Be very realistic with the time that you set, and figure out how to work in short bursts, plan ahead. There's lots of things that you can do. So I like that. And then we use trackers too. So one of the things I first saw, I think, from Treasure Davis, and then my friend Mark Pattison in San Diego, like he had one. So we've seen several versions of like this daily success tracker and like daily things, and like you can even gamify it and get points. I've always loved that. To this day, I still use a daily tracker to track my goals and different things that I do. And we just create those templates in Canva. We typically print them out. I'm now currently using a Remarkable, so I'm not printing them out, although I do miss paper. And so I end up having like 27 post-it notes on my desk. So those are some things that we would do. Now, here's another one that Kelcie is a specialist in. The next question that we get all the time is, what tools should I use?
Mhm.
And what they're really saying is, like, you can be $25 a month into bankruptcy as a real estate agent.
Death.
Everybody wants your money.
Yeah.
They're all promising you more leads, more time, better systems. And so what people really want to know is, like, what should I spend money on for technology? What's really worth it? And I'd love to get, let's talk CRM, let's talk transaction management, let's talk scheduling and marketing. And you just pick which one when you want to go first.
Okay. Well, I'll pick marketing. Um, I if you're not using Canva, what are you doing?
And so would you pay for Canva Pro?
I don't think you need to.
Really?
No. For a real estate agent, I don't think you need to. Um, because and we've been blessed. I mean, we've been using Canva. I personally have been using Canva for even before I met them. And it was like, what is this fun thing? Like, I grew up on Kid Pics, and I'm like, you know, that was like the original digital art thing for children. And so finding Canva was exciting. But I don't think you need the pro one to start out, for
Okay.
sure. You can do a lot without it. There's things that the pro helps with. For example, one of the newest things that Canva updated was their template links. You can't use or share template links without pro, which I think is lame, but whatever. But I'm pretty sure that the AI feature of Canva is with pro. But to be honest, there's so many templates in there that you just find one you like, and you plug in your brand colors and your name, and just to get it done. If you're not doing anything, the first step is get it done. And so free Canva will do that for you. What you There's a trade-off. You either pay more and use less of your time, or you save more money and use more of your time. And if in the beginning you have a little bit more time to spend, go with the free. So Canva is for marketing, and you can do that with print and digital, and it's awesome. Um, I was looking at this MailChimp, but like email marketing. So let's think about email marketing, especially in the beginning. You don't need it. And to be honest, we were using MailChimp for a long time, and I've used it in various ways. We've switched to Flowdesk, and I think MailChimp is awesome. I think MailChimp is for the bigger database. I think it's for when you have a big following, you've got a marketing manager, you've got people that can handle that beast. Flowdesk is simpler and cheaper.
Okay.
And you can have as many subscribers as you want, and it has forms. It's got some great stuff. So if you're looking at an email marketing campaign, check out Flowdesk. uh, that's what I'm going to say about marketing.
Okay. So I'll chime in real quick on marketing. So she mentioned email marketing. We use Flowdesk. We're really enjoying it. Canva, and then some sort of scheduling tool. So Meta Business Suite. If you are on Instagram and Facebook, a scheduling tool is really really important.
Mhm.
And if you're on several of the other platforms, figure out either automation or a scheduling tool so that you can schedule out your posts and you don't have to live in social media because it can be super distracting. I'll take because I'll take CRM because I was not the transaction coordinator because I wasn't very good at it. So I'll take CRM. So I have my favorites, and the most important thing is that you have a CRM that you're going to use. Now there are free versions out there that you can get and you can try. I know HubSpot has a free version. There's one called Close that's free. So there's a ton. I'm not a huge proponent of just a spreadsheet. And the only reason is because of automations, triggers, reminders, some of these other features. But if you are averse to technology and you're super then yes, put it in a spreadsheet for now. But I believe if you're going to grow and you're going to scale, you should have a CRM. And I know not everybody feels that way, but I'm tech enabled, so I'm going to lean more towards that. And even some of my clients who are not super techy, they have their assistant and they utilize a CRM. So I love Follow Up Boss because they have such a great API. They communicate with a lot of different people. The struggle with a Follow Up Boss is that you still need a website. You still need you need a website, you need some other things like that.
My computer's dying. I gotta plug in.
Okay, I'll pause and then we'll be able to. Okay. So there's Follow Up Boss. I also love Sierra Interactive and I love Lofty. Or I guess, yeah, it's called Lofty. It was Chime for a while, but now it's Lofty. So I love Sierra Interactive because it's got that front end user face where people can search for homes. I can write my blog there. I can create landing pages, community pages, open house sign in, single property websites. And then on the back end, I have a really robust CRM that allows me to manage all of my clients, past clients, sphere, incoming leads, lead routing, lead distribution, automation, text message support. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff in there. So my top 3 of a CRM would be Follow Up Boss, Sierra, and Lofty. And that's it for now on a CRM. So let's talk transaction management.
Yeah. So I've used 2 that I can remember, but 2 transaction management softwares, and that was SkySlope. And now that we're with Real, they have Rezen and SkySlope. I think before we jumped over to Real, they were making some improvements, because it hasn't always been my friend in the past, but they were definitely making some improvements and additions that I think is still a great tool, if you need, that kind of. And I mean, I don't know, Kristi, I think you would know better what other brokers like
That's
demand.
actually what I was going to say. You're going to use whatever your broker
Yeah.
uses,
But
right?
yeah, but when I started to actually think about transaction management, I thought more about process management.
Yes.
So I'm thinking Monday.com, Notion,
Asana.
Asana, Trello. Um, but these things, so those are all ka-ching ka-ching money. You can still replicate those types of things, that type of process system with a well thought out Google spreadsheet. Um, it's going to take some time setting it up. And if you have uh, an operations manager or an assistant, or it just
Or hire someone on Fiverr.
yeah, exactly. There is a template out there. Managing the process, so not just the paperwork, but having a hub, a transaction hub, um, is so critical. And even better, if you do have it in a Google spreadsheet, most of the time, I feel like you'll probably be able to Zapier your way to connect it to your Google Calendar, so that when your Binzer period is coming up to end, it's in your spreadsheet and in your calendar. And um,
Yeah.
yeah,
So you're mostly going to utilize whatever your broker uses if they're in dot loop
in
or
terms
if
of
they're in
file management.
Skyslope, things like that, but not like broker management, but transaction management. I agree. I would be looking at a Monday or an Asana or Notion, or a good old, spreadsheet. Now let's talk about calendar management. You're either going to be team Microsoft or team Google.
No,
And if
right,
you're
Microsoft.
if you're team Google, then you're going to use your Google Calendar. They have a fantastic free scheduling tool.
Yes.
So, before I used my Google scheduling tool, which is free, I was using Calendly, and I loved Calendly. There's so many really cool things that you can do. Having some sort of a Calendly or a scheduling tool will really help you, increase your efficiency when you're trying to get clients to schedule with you.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, you should have some sort of project management system, which we talked about. You should have some marketing tools. You don't need a lot of them, and many of them you can use for free. You should have a scheduling tool and you should have a CRM. Those are probably your like core base technology pieces. And then from there, you can kind of branch out.
Yeah. And I would just say, for real quick, especially with marketing, if you're just trying to get something done, don't try to reinvent the wheel. Don't try to make it all of your personality all on a piece of paper, especially for those expressives out there. Expressives and the analyticals that are looking at a circle and you're moving it an inch and then back and forth and back and forth. I'm one of those. I get it. But don't do it. Look for a template. If it's not in Canva, Google one on Etsy. It's out there. You will find one that you like, and just set a timer, right? If you're super analytical, set a timer where, okay, in 15 minutes this is going to be done. And so you're doing it all. Just get it done.
Excellent. Okay, let's go to our well, we got two more questions. This one's a little bit bigger, but we'll jam through it. So, oftentimes people start to see success and then they're like, "Should I start a team?" I'm thinking I should start a team. So, Kelcie, why don't you lead us out on this? Like, maybe there's some questions people should be asking themselves before they just go out and start a team.
Yeah. I mean, first you got to ask, what's the real reason? Is it coming from, like, you're overwhelmed by all these things that maybe business is booming and you're juggling 5 to 10 escrows a month, right? And you're like, I need help. Is and I need to pass these on to people, or whatever it might be. Is it because you're avoiding things, or is it because you want to impact another agent's life, because you want to build something, or is it just because you're having trouble maintaining what you already have? I think that's a really important question that you have to ask yourself. um, just an
Okay.
honest self check.
I like that. And so it also might be like, who's my first hire? That's probably so it's like they're like, oh, I think I need a team, and they don't even have a transaction coordinator. And that's probably one of the first things I would say
Yeah.
is you're going to need an assistant on some level,
Yeah.
and you may start by hiring a transaction coordinator per file. It's
Yeah.
going to cost you somewhere between $300 and $500 per file. And trust me, it's well worth the money. I know in your head you're thinking, oh, but it only takes me a couple minutes to do this and the other, but all of that adds up.
Mhm.
It takes up space in your head, and then it bleeds into your lead generation
Right.
time, your follow up, or even your family time.
Yeah.
So what you really need to be thinking about is like, have I created, enough business that I could sustain ongoing help.
Mhm.
And then you're probably going to, before you go and start a team, you're going to hire an assistant.
Mhm.
And that assistant's going to be a jack of all trades.
Mhm.
They're probably, ideally, they're licensed, but even if they're not licensed, they're going to be able to do transaction management. They're going to be able to do project management. They're going to help you with marketing. If they're licensed, they may help you with showings, and they may help you with inspections and appraisals, and all of those things that take you out in the field and away from lead generation, like going on appointments, setting appointments, going on appointments, negotiating contracts, and closing deals. So, let's assume that you have all of those great people in place, and now you still have a surplus of leads and opportunities. You're going to want to ask yourself, have I created a repeatable process someone else could plug into, right? Or am I just looking for someone to fix my chaos?
Mhm.
What have you seen with that, Kelcie?
Um, I think when you don't, I think when you take on a team or you hire somebody, you're quickly faced with the realization that they can't read my mind. They can't read my mind and they don't do things like me all the time. And so when you have a standard way of doing things, it's only up to you to get that communicated to the other person. They can ask, what do you want me to do? But even then, you got to tell them. And so it is well worth the time and the energy to, before you hire, I would say before you hire like an agent or a TC, having help maybe with an assistant first to help you create this process, um, maybe, and utilize AI as well, of the an open house protocol, things that you would train other people to do that have never done it before. So an open house protocol, what should your scheduled day look like? Because as a team leader, you're not just looking for, you shouldn't be just looking for somebody to dump leads on. You're helping somebody grow. You're developing them. And so it's not just about the escrows and the work. It's about helping them become a better, more well-rounded agent and scale.
I like that. So, I mean, it's again creating a win win. And I think you even asked the question, like, do I actually want to manage people, or do I just want some help? Right. So, yeah, Alexa wanted to chime in. So, okay. Last question, and this is one that that comes up often, is how do I choose a brokerage? How
Mm.
do I know what the right brokerage is for me? And I don't know, Kelcie, how many people do you think we have interviewed in the past 10 years for you, a little over 11 for me? Hundreds, I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. At least 100.
Yeah, at least. And actually, that doesn't even include like phone interviews, but that's
No.
like actual in-person interviews.
Yeah.
And so I would say that there are a couple key things that you should be looking for. What kind of training and support do they have?
Mhm.
It is absolutely true that you get what you pay for. And I'm not here to speak ill of any brokerage, but just remember it's not always about the splits, especially in the beginning.
Yeah.
Especially in the beginning, don't be thinking, oh, I want the best split possible, because the best split possible is probably not going to give you the support and the training that you need.
Right.
So the first thing I would be looking at is what kind of daily, weekly training? Is it live? Is it recorded? Is it in person? What kind of support? Do they have a backlog of training? Then I would be looking at mentorship, right? So when you join, can you get a mentor? Is there going to be someone in the office who can, coach you through your first couple of deals and the all of that kind of stuff? Um, so coaching, mentorship, training, and I would also look at culture. Real estate can be really lonely, and also I've seen people like get unmotivated, right? That there's a reason that the failure rate is so high in real estate. So I would also be looking at culture, support with technology, like what kind of tech tools do they give you to set you up for success. So that's kind of my take on what you should be looking at with a brokerage. Kelcie, what are your thoughts?
I mean, yeah, echo everything you said, because it's an investment. And as somebody who I'm afraid to take risks, and I look at how much money I'm saving and I think, well, I'll save as much money as I can and I'll just make up for what they lack. And as somebody who's also seen, new agents start something, you only have so much brain space. So you might as well invest a little bit more to be nurtured as you're doing this new thing. It is worth it. It is
I love it.
worth it.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for joining us with some of the top questions that real estate agents ask us all the time. We'll make sure to put together any of the resources that we mentioned so that you guys can access them. And as always, we appreciate you coming here. We've given you the information, and now it's your turn.
Take it and run.